Yeah, having done the declarations of interest, can we move on to the minutes? Does everybody read them, and do they accept them as a true record?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we then move over to the investment programme update and the dashboards. Liam, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Usual item, the funding commitment as at end of January is unchanged at 848.3 million versus the funding available from confirmed income streams of 871 million as approved by CA board, and the limit of 871 million as board members know is fully utilised by earmark contributions approved by the CA board. Costs incurred or the drawings the end of January were 693.1 million. That's only marginally up, which is to be expected. Sorry.
He's failed the test. He can't open the door.
Apologies, everyone.
Morning.
Nick did that, it wasn't us.
Right, sorry. Yeah, costs incurred drawings end of January 693.1 million, only marginally up on the 692 million in December, which that's to be expected with quarterly claims in the main. There has been a reallocation of funding of £10 million, as noted in the board report, between Rail Package 1 and Rail Package 2. That's no additional cost burden to the investment programme. It's due to a change in the balance of payments from DfT for each project. So it's effectively moving money between the two because DfT have done similar. Since the last board meeting, and since the previous full sitting of the WMCA Investment Board on the 30th of January, and circulation of February 25 board papers, there have been 2 business case submissions approved under the delegated powers. 17th of February, the SRO approved a change request for the HS2 parallel designs roundabout over the Trace. There's no budget implication, but it does extend the completion date by 12 months. And the second one was 24th of February, which was an approved of a change request for the NEC Longabout project, which extended the completion date by 36 months. That's both connected to the HS2 station, Solihull, and delays around that, which is having an impact around planning for Arden Cross. We've now been informed by MHCLG, and I think we've made board aware that future gateway reviews will be removed for the WMCA. Those were our 5-year review periods in the investment programme. They'll be replaced with the same arrangements expected in the integrated settlements. They're being discussed at the moment, but it'd be more like an annual conversation, annual report. The requirement to produce a local evaluation framework remains, and that has been drafted and approved, I believe. Ready to move on to the dashboard unless there's any questions.
Any questions at all? Move on to the dashboard now. Yeah.
Okay. So as you notice, there's 84 projects recorded as having approved funding. 30 of those projects reached completion. Evaluation of those projects commenced. The dashboard records the funding allocated, and that which has been used, as well as the approved date for the completion date, together with the anticipated date that we expect the project to complete by. We've got a red status out of those remaining 54 live projects. It's now 10 projects, which is substantially down on massive improvement on previous. We've removed 23 projects to a red status, and that's due to those extensions coming in a format we can approve and being documented. We've got 4 remaining ones on UKC infrastructure, which we're working with Solihull on, or related to Coventry, where we've seen change requests that have been submitted. A board has heard from the project sponsor what those are. We're waiting for 1 or 2 outstanding questions to be answered before we can document those extensions. And there's 2 TFWM projects in there that relate to one, the Metro project for Birmingham East Side. That will be submitted in May, and Sutton Coldfield project, which is on hold, but we still require that information to formally extend, should that be the right decision.
Right. Any questions on those aspects at all? Can I just ask Ian whether we would expect those 10 to have been resolved by the next meeting, or?
Well, I think given the number of projects that Solly have got, they've got by far the bulk of them, because they're all small projects.
Yeah.
That there's continuously going to be something probably there. I'm hoping that we'll clear those quickly, but with that large number of projects, you expect some. It'd be nice to address them in advance, but we've made a good job of clearing the backlog of those. Hopefully you can get ahead now. The 4 Coventry ones we're chasing for just a response to questions with the officer concerned. Hope as soon as he can come back, we should be able to clear it. But it's getting tight, because when papers go out for this meeting, they actually go out in 3 weeks. So although it looks like a 4-week programme, you've got to document something and then get it out within the 3 weeks for it to hit the board papers.
No,
So it is getting tight unless we hear very quickly.
I think the fact that we even likely down to single figures by the next meeting, like the year, is probably.
Yeah, got my fingers crossed, and then there's a question of staying ahead of it.
How about the Transport for West Midlands one? I mean, those are internal ones that can be resolved easily. Is there any problem with that?
I think get the right information rather than do it twice on Birmingham East Side, because that's got some complications, because part of the route goes underneath Curzon Street, and that's causing complications about giving the right period of time extension. So as we're told that I think the full case will come in May, and that will answer those questions, but it's a bit of planning around that. The Sutton Coldfield one, to be honest, is a project on hold, and it's just informing us of that. That should be relatively easy to do, so we're trying to get TFWM to give us the answer on that.
Any further questions then? On to the next item, and that's the extension of the business energy assessment service. Good news, Danielle.
Hello there, thank you, Chair. So the Business Energy Assessment Service has been running for the last 18 months, following funding from the Department for Energy and Net Zero. It was a £24 million programme that included some funding from DLIC through our Trailblazer Devolution deal. So it's been going for 18 months. But due to some delays in the programme starting and mobilisation issues, there was some significant underspend. And DESNZ have asked if we can extend the programme for a further year, and have offered £14 million to extend the programme so they can get the data that they're looking for. And so what we're asking is that the board accepts that the Combined Authority would be the accountable body for that 14 million to extend the programme for a further year, and approve 5.45 million of CA resources to supplement the programme, and that's going towards grant funding within the Combined Authority area, and so CDEL for grant funding, and RDEL to deliver that grant funding. It's worth noting that the BEES programme is delivered across the whole of the ITL1 of the West Midlands. So we have Staffordshire, Worcestershire and Warwickshire as delivery partners on this programme with us. So we're hoping that you'll accept the recommendations to extend this programme and release that funding.
Thank you, Jamie, yeah, thank you. Any questions from anyone on this? Jim? Mr. Arbor?
I've been slightly briefed on this, so it's not an area I'm in depth in, but just have a note on this around there's general support for the extension of the programme. I know Coventry, particularly our business team, work very closely on this and with this, but there's a couple of questions they've asked me to raise. So if you don't mind, just some explanation of this. They're concerned about the reduction of the unit cost of the standard energy audit to £1,000, whereas the cost of an intensive audit has been raised to £8,000. They're worried about the businesses not getting the right support. I've been to some of these when they've been done, and it will always depend on the individual organisation. It also says 2.18 million is being earmarked for programme management and grant administration within the combined authority area, of which the combined authority will be given a small proportion of 300,000. We just need to understand how that funding is going to be distributed to Coventry City Council and other delivery bodies. And then how will the £10 million capital grants be divided between the 7 combined constituency authority areas? They're the questions I just need clarity on.
Yep, certainly. So to answer the first question, the standard audit, we had to come up with in the first programme a standard audit cost, which was £1,250 per audit. That included a kind of a road mapping element to the audit. So and DESNZ, after looking at the work done to date, realised that road mapping element wasn't really needed for the standard audits. So it went from 1,250 down to 1,100, which was felt to be the absolute minimum required for a standard audit. The energy intensive audits did drop. It was a range of price from around about 5,000 to 10,000, and it was basically we've arrived on 8,500 for an energy intensive audit, which I think has been accepted by the delivery partners for that. But I understand that there has been an issue with the drop, but it's only the concerns have only been raised by the Coventry delivery partner. The other delivery partners in the consortium have been happy with that minimum amount. The second question regarding the CA costs, we've incorporated into those costs two main things. One being the project management costs. So we put an assistant delivery manager and a project manager onto this that's coming out of the funding from DESNZ. That'll be just over 100,000, and then the CA is also taking on a large amount of the marketing costs of this program, whereas in the past the marketing was separated out due to how the program was previously developed issued. But we've taken that in-house in order to make sure that we are doing that marketing in a more controlled manner. So there's 200,000 against just the marketing alone, of which an additional amount is going out to the Aston consortium, of which Coventry is part of. We're also paying for a marketing manager as well within the CA to handle that budget. And the final question, I'm sorry, what was the final question?
By the way, just because Coventry is the only one that's raised it doesn't mean to say that there's anything wrong with raising it.
No.
But the clarity on how the £10 million capital grants fund will be divided between the 7 combined authority constituency authority areas. In Coventry, prior to this, we've been doing this for years anyway. So just coming back to it about taking on people in order to oversee this is part of the issue we keep having with the Combined Authority, where in order to distribute funds, they take on people to distribute funds, which then takes away from the delivery. So that's why it's being raised, and that's why there's those questions being asked about where the money is going and how much. That's why.
Yes,
This-
absolutely. Yeah.
It's not particular to this particular fund. This is across the piece at the moment.
So the drop in the price of the standard order was basically dictated by DESNZ to us. That's what their analysts felt was the price we had to use. It was dropped initially to £1,000 per standard order, but we pushed it back up to 1,100. With regard to the separation of the grant funding, 5.5 million is going to the combined authority area loan from the DESNZ grant funding pot. So out of the 10 million that DESNZ is offering for grant funding, we're getting 5.5 million, which we want to supplement with a further 4.45. And then, just so you're aware, Worcestershire will get £2 million grant, Warwickshire 1,250,000, and Stoke and Staffordshire will get 1,200,000. So a significant proportion is coming into the combined authority area for this.
Are you happy with that, Jim?
I've raised the question. I've asked the question. I mean, I could go into all sorts of detail. I'm not going to because it's not relevant today.
Yeah.
But Coventry's done these audits for lots of companies outside of Coventry district, so Warwickshire, etc., and elsewhere, and we carry on doing that because they're good at doing it.
Yeah.
And all I ever say is, can we just make sure that we can maximise delivery as opposed to holding back in order to top slice, in order to manage funds that need to come directly to the service deliverer. That's the issue, and it's an issue that's going to keep on being raised because it is holding us back. And by the way, when somebody says, and this is often an answer we get from combined authority officers, well, government have dictated we must do it this way. And all I would say is fine, but there should be some challenge there as well. Because ultimately it's civil servants talking to civil servants, and actually the political interest in that, in terms of delivery at the end, is really important to understand where those conversations are being had at the moment. I can't see it. That's why I raise it.
Does anybody have any questions following on from that? I have a couple actually. I mean, to get to the grips of administration, I mean, how much is going out to individual authorities of that amount, Jamie, please?
Within the combined authority area, so the Aston Consortium, which is made up of Aston University, Coventry Council, and the Black Country. It's an acronym. I'm sorry, but it's a company dealing with the Black Country area. That consortium is receiving 1.36 million in delivery costs of the audits alone, and project management costs of 223,000. Then there's an additional 150,000 of marketing going. That's just in the combined authority area. It's worth noting as well that for the grant delivery element, where we're asking for 1 million in Ardell from the investment fund, a proportion of that is going to Birmingham City Council for the grant delivery of the full grant within the combined authority area, and Coventry City Council will be a sub-delivery partner of that. So they're delivering the grant element in Coventry on behalf of the programme. Worcestershire and the Marches are receiving £189,000 project management costs. Warwickshire will be receiving 123,000, and Stoke and Staffordshire 119,000. And that's basically based on the number of audits that they will be delivering on behalf of the programme.
There's not any information in the report that relates to the programme so far in terms of geographical distribution of the grants that have been given already. Can you give us some indication of where that's happened? I mean, I'm particularly concerned because I was aware before I became part of the investment board that the Black Country, and in particular my own authority, Sandwell, was probably the local authority and also the area, the Black Country, most needy of this type of assistance. And I think it's important that the distribution is fair. And if we haven't really hit the targets that we need in specific areas, that we need to up the marketing within those areas. That's my feeling.
Absolutely. It's why this organisation that's basically representing the delivery in the Black Country, it's made up of a program, of a company called ProEnviro, who are, I would say, the exemplar delivery partner in this area. They're focusing very much on, although they're doing standard audits and they're delivering for some of the other local authorities, they're also delivering the lion's share of energy intensive audits, which is something that we're very much wanting to focus on. And obviously the Black Country is a focal point for organisations that potentially would be defined as energy intensive. So I don't have breakdown per LA within the Combined Authority area, but I can tell you that the number of audits we've done in the last 18 months to date, and so yes, to date you're looking at 1,400, around about 1,400.
Can you provide us with the geographical breakdown outside of this meeting, and if we feel that we need to
Absolutely.
Put it on the agenda for the next meeting if there's any concerns? Yeah,
Absolutely. I can get that to you, no problem.
thank you, Jamie. No more questions? No. In that case, can we approve the recommendations 1, 2, 4 on page 31 then, please? Would you agree? Agree. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is the Global West Midlands, and that's the change request for 7.25 million from the integrated settlement. Can I throw over to Jonathan Skinner?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick off, Chair, and just explain a little bit of background about the I suppose technicalities of the change request, and then I've also got Neil and Pip from the Growth Company with me who've been doing the bulk of the work on what then the delivery activity is in 25-26. So this is a change request to the current 2-year Global West Midlands programme. In particular, it extends that programme for an additional year to 2025-26, and this follows the Combined Authority Board meeting on the 15th of November, which considered the review of economic development functions in the region, in particular the desire there to pursue a new consolidated model with functions, and that 2025-26 will be a transitional year, both for the West Midlands Growth Company, as that changes to become a smaller, more reformed delivery body, and then ahead of the introduction of a new economic development vehicle in 2020, from April 2026 onwards. So with thanks to the Growth Company colleagues who have worked both with partners in local authorities and other partners across the region in developing the detail of then what will be delivered next year, and the change request kind of formalises that, and I'll particularly focus on 4 aspects. One is about functions, second about budget, outputs, and then some of the legal work as well, which are covered in the report. So on functions, following the engagement exercise that Growth Company led on with local authorities in particular, it's been identified that and the change request specifies that the West Midlands Growth Company activity in 25-26 will be focused on aspects of inward investment, capital attraction, visitor economy and strategic relationship management functions, and retain the leadership and back office capacity that's important to be able to deliver on those. On budget, the CA board in November agreed to support an overall budget envelope of 7.25 million, with 3.33 million of that coming from the integrated settlement, as you explained, and that was endorsed subject to the further approval, because at that point it was still that those integrated settlement monies weren't conferred from government. So final sign off of the CA's budget for 25-26 will be considered at the CA board meeting on Friday, at which point then the combined authority resources mentioned in the change request will become available to both the combined authority and then subject to the decision today to the Growth Company. On outputs, the change request sets the outputs and outcomes that will be delivered in 25-26. These are in addition to those that will be delivered in the first 2 years, and are at a level that takes account of the programme's duration. So this only being a kind of a 1-year delivery extension from what was previously been a 2-year delivery programme, and also the reduction in funding. In broad terms, this extension relates to about an approximate 40% reduction in funding, and those outputs are specified in the report. The appraisal recommendation is to approve the change request following the SAF process, but it should be noted that the appraisal highlighted that it could be challenging for the Growth Company to meet the outputs targets, given the reduction in staffing and overall budget for this year. So that was one of the kind of notes that was highlighted as part of the appraisal process. That appraisal process also highlighted one of the conditions here, which is that particularly in delivering some of the activity that I related to the functions that I described before, particularly in reference to the West Midlands investment zone, that activity should be subject to some further detail that is kind of mutually agreed between the combined authority and the Growth Company, and that I know that there's been a kind of significant piece there to be able to identify what that is, particularly in terms of some more proactive work that is done, particularly in relation to some of those sites. And then finally, just on the legal activities that subject to Investment Board's agreement today, the change request will be processed through a variation to the current SLA between the combined authority and the Growth Company. So that will be extended for a further year and incorporate then the funding conditions from the different funding sources, in particular the integrated settlement. So that kind of wraps up the nuts and bolts of the change request, Chair. But happy to answer any questions on that, or particularly invite comments from Neil and Pip on some of the activity.
Thank you. Any questions first from anyone?
I've not got a question, but I've got a comment. But it might be good to hear from Neil first before I make it.
Neil.
Actually, I'll tell you what I'll say, because I'll just say it anyway, because this helps. This will help Neil anyway. So I'm being nice to you, Neil. Don't worry. So here's the first thing, just to say that I'm going to speak on behalf of Coventry here, because the work, particularly in relation to the investment zones and the work that's being done there, is absolutely vital in terms of the economic health, not just of Coventry, but of the wider West Midlands. So having that connection with the Growth Company going forward and making sure the outputs that we set are worked to and achieved, and we've got good oversight of that, and we work closely with the Growth Company. Now, I'm saying apple pie here, really, mother and apple pie, you know what I mean, but I just want to emphasise it's really important that ultimately, again, it's about delivery at the end, and working with those delivery partners who will deliver it are absolutely key to the success of this. So good report today, but ultimately taking it forward, that we've got real serious outcomes that we can achieve. and working with Neil and his colleagues, I'm sure we'll achieve that.
Thanks, councillor Boyd.
To you then.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. I just wanted to, it's been a while since I've been at this board, so I just wanted to take a few minutes, if I might, just to talk a little bit about outcomes, delivery, where we're at, and also priorities for next year. I think the first thing to say is, despite the challenges that we face in the world, the region is still doing particularly well on inward investment. So at the end of Q3, we had 125 inward investment projects landed against a stretch target of 117. That equates to 8,770 jobs against a target of 8,000. 10 business conferences against a target of 8, and 11 sporting events landed against a target of 8. Where we haven't quite met our targets is on capital investment landings, although I know there's 2 or 3 projects, Dudley Ice Rink, the work we're doing in Sandwell with Octopus Real Estate, and on West Bromwich High Street, which hopefully will land in the coming months. So I think the important point to make here is the programme is working and is having some impact. And in terms of broader business perceptions of the region, we track that, and we're up 12% from 2021 to 2024. What's also important to point out, colleagues, is that certainly over the last 2 years, we've been focusing not just on regional priorities, the things that are important more broadly in terms of investment promotion, but also on some local priorities. So the Global Growth Programme has been particularly successful in Coventry, Birmingham, and Wolverhampton. We've done work on hotel feasibility in quite a challenging market in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Dudley, and Walsall. As Councillor Boyle mentioned, we've been doing some fairly intensive work in Coventry, and we held an investor day for developers not so long ago with quite a lot of follow-up required on that. I mentioned the ice rink development in Dudley, a bespoke visitor economy campaign in Solihull, investor introductions for West Bromwich Town Centre, and collaboration on the National Judo Centre in Walsall. Now, moving forward, clearly we won't be in a position to exercise such specific local priorities, but I am confident that we'll continue to have impacts at a local level. And as Jonathan talked about, obviously we'll have to curtail our targets. So the numbers that you see in the report, I think, are about 50% on targets, but importantly, it's just 30% less on outcomes. And that's partly a consequence of what is still a very, very strong pipeline. So there's still quite a lot of interest in the region from investors, which we hope to obviously materialise over the next 12 months. Around this table, 3 weeks ago, we went through the regional priorities proposed for next year with the Mayor and Met leaders, and as Jonathan says, that will go for formal approval to the CA board on Friday. But I thought it'd be useful just to very quickly give you some headlines on what they are. So in the 4 areas of profile, jobs, regen, and what we call vibrant destinations, which is effectively tourism, I think we've been really pleased with the reaction we've had to the It Starts Here campaign. So focus on innovation. And we're now deploying that at a local level. I know there's been a few events, one in Wolverhampton a couple of weeks ago, which was very successful. As Jim mentioned, the investment zone is an absolute priority for us as a region, as are our growth zones. We will grow our Partners West Midlands programme to bring in more private sector commercial sponsorship. We'll support the Mayor on his mission to China next week, and hopefully if we secure a free trade agreement with India, we will have a mission to India later on this year. On the jobs front, our focus is very much delivering the pipeline that I mentioned. I think it's fair to say that we are examining and re-examining our sectoral priorities, and for obvious reasons, we're looking at the defence sector very carefully at the moment and the opportunities economically for the region. We will lead and deliver for the Mayor a growth and investment summit, which will launch the local growth plan on the 30th of June. We'll have a range of investors working very closely with DBT in the region for that event. And I'm pleased to report that whilst we weren't able to fund the Global Growth Programme out of this funding allocation for the next year, we've secured some additional monies through the Midlands Innovation Universities, which will allow us to continue to work with those companies. And they are all international companies that we sort of hothouse here that will ordinarily go to London. On the regen front, obviously, we've got colleagues at MIPIM in the pouring rain this week. And importantly, we have the largest delegation going to UK REEF, including all our local authority partners, CA and other colleagues in May. We launched last week strategic sites portfolio. So that's site selection, West Midlands. And we're now also focused on a range of capital investment projects supporting colleagues here at the CA, including Stadia-led regen opportunities and others. And on the tourism front, we've done a lot on the media side, and as you'll see, we plan to continue to do that, particularly maximising the opportunities around events that we have secured that will take place over the next 12 months. We will continue to work with the industry, the visitor economy industry, on the visitor pass, and I'm pleased to report that it looks as if we will secure or retain our destination development partnership status, one of only 2 regions with Visit Britain, which will attract some additional funding for the next financial year. In terms of reporting, colleagues, we obviously have reported on a quarterly basis to the Economic Growth Board, as was to the directors of economic development. We will, in the new arrangements, report directly to MML, to CA exec, and obviously to the CA board directly. I think I've just about covered it.
Thank you, Neil.
Up to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question, but I've got
Yes,
some comments, if that's okay. Yeah, I've always found that it's worked quite well within Birmingham as well in terms of bringing the gross added value to Birmingham as a city as a whole. And given the options that have been put forward to us, option 2 is the most favourable option. Given that option 1, I don't think we can really consider, given that there would be some liabilities coming to the combined authority. And this gives a new focus to the growth company that we're trying to set up. So I would recommend option 2 as well.
I have a couple. I know you've been working with Samuel. I'm going to be parochial on this again. And you know that historically we, as a borough, we haven't necessarily got what we needed to out of the growth company. And in fact, the leader at one stage was thinking that we should pull out our investment because of that. You mentioned during your explanation that a lot of the focus to this point has been on the cities, which is understandable. But in terms of size, we could equally be a city. We're bigger than Wolverhampton, I think we're bigger than Coventry or round.
Depends what you're measuring it by, Pete.
Talking about population, not geography.
There can't be that many of you, surely. Like the life out of it.
What I'm saying, but equally, that we've got the ice deprivation figures. We've got, it's been talked about this morning about youth unemployment and what they're going to do in terms of welfare. It's going to be really, really important for the likes of Samwell to see something from the growth company that's going to turn some of those figures round. I mean, you mentioned 2 projects. One was Octopus, one was West Bromwich, High Street, basically. Do you see those projects actually bringing some outcomes or outputs from them in a reasonable timescale? Because we're putting money in and not necessarily seeing the outcomes.
Well,
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely confident both those projects will deliver within the coming months. We'd hope that they would land actually within this financial year, but I think.
Right.
And the other thing is just to be aware, actually, leader of Sandwell is one of two political leaders that are now effectively operating a sort of scrutiny arrangements over the growth company and its transition into the economic development vehicle. So
Yeah.
we're spending a lot of time with Councillor Courts and Carmichael. I have to say, I'm spending quite a bit of my own time in Sandwell. So we sat
Yeah.
on the place board recently, and we're working very closely with colleagues there on ensuring that from a local perspective, there's more work done on the sort of civic elements of promotion. So I'm pretty confident you're getting value for money in Sandwell. And as you say, we got
Everybody with us?
Apologies, Chair, it's in my bag and I don't want to open the bag. Even louder.
I thought somebody was trying to shut me up there.
Well done, Bob.
Ice cream,
No.
Yeah.
You know, as Jim says, it's all about outcomes at the end of the day. And I'm pretty confident that you'll certainly get more out of the economic development vehicle as things
Going
evolve.
forward. I think it would be good actually at some stage to just to see the plans for each of the areas. And I know it's wider than the 7 met. I understand that, but to get some overview of the sort of projects that and outcomes and outputs that you're looking at for each area, really, I think that would be good. It would be something that, let's say, the start of the next municipal year, so we know exactly what the plans are for the next 12 months.
Well, just to be really clear, we've set out what our priorities are over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
We've set out the targets on a regional basis, and obviously we'll develop our business plan accordingly. I do need to stress that there's 50% less resource in the next financial year, so we will not be deploying localized plans in the same way as we've done over here. So I just need to be upfront about that. I don't think, you know, I think you'll still get strong value for money on a sort of regional basis, but I've been around pretty much all of the leaders now. I think we've got one more this week at Walsall, just to make it really clear that we cannot do as much on a localized basis as we've been doing previously, certainly during this transition year.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Neil.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have recommendations then on page 71. Unless there's any other questions, can we take those as approved, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. We move on to agenda item 7 then, which are 7, 8, and 9. Pass over to Nick, please. Dashboard, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So as usual, items 7, 8, and 9 are the public information dashboards for the funds managed by WNBC. These are for noting, and I will provide a full update under private session, unless, of course, there's any question in the public session. Excuse me, I've got quite a bad throat as well.
Any questions under the public session? No? Okay, then we move on to item 10 then, which is the exclusion of the public and press in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972. The public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business that they're likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information as specified on the paragraphs of the Act.
We're not staying there. Sounds as if it's going to be interesting.
That's how much we don't like you.